Today, I want to talk about a classic children's TV show, one that taught all of us 90s kids important life lessons, like believing in the power of friendship, believing in the heart of the cards, and teaching us to fear God's wrath. That's right, today we're talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! But not just any series of Yu-Gi-Oh! The original series most people know as Season 0. You may know Yu-Gi-Oh! Today by the 2001 4Kids English dub, which itself was an adaptation of the 2000 Japanese anime Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. But this wasn't the first. That would be the 1998 anime by Toei Animation, the same studio that brought you other classic action series like Kanon and Lovely Complex. I had the absolute pleasure of rewatching this series during my time in quarantine and thought I would share my experience with my wonderful subscribers, of which I have many. This show was never released in the United States where I currently live, so I just like to say that I obtained my version in very legal fashion. I made sure to wear my face mask the entire time to prevent the spread of any viruses. But sadly, I forgot to put an N95 on my computer, so it's currently trying to mine for Bitcoin, much like an archaeologist uncovering ancient Egyptian relics. Here, they find a puzzle made of solid gold, and then die. So where should this priceless and dangerous artifact of the ancient world end up? Why, in the hands of a 16-year-old Japanese schoolboy. This is Yugi Muto, exactly one half of a main character, your average high school kid with the demeanor of a 10-year-old and the stature of a 5-year-old. Yugi has a problem. He has no friends. So one day, after completing the Millennium Puzzle, Yugi wishes for friends only to sell his soul to an Old Testament god. In this form, he is Yami Yugi, an Egyptian pharaoh with the power to exact righteous judgment on sinners, and the amazing ability to cheese his way through any game placed in front of him. The other characters include familiar faces but with strange names, mostly due to the fact that when 4Kids Entertainment dubbed the Duel Monsters anime, their brains exploded when they discovered that many Japanese people have Japanese-sounding names, which is unacceptable. This is Jonochi, a hot-headed classmate who wants Yugi to be a man. This is Honda, who by all accounts is a complete simp. This is Anzu, someone Yugi has known since childhood. She may or may not be in love with the spirit of a 2,000-year-old Egyptian pharaoh. And of course, we have the most important character, Miho, a character whose personality traits include being hot and being pretty fucking stupid, ruining anything and everything she comes into contact with. If you were like me, you may be confused as to who this person is. Don't worry, you're not alone. She never appeared in the Duel Monsters anime, which is a real shame considering how vital she is in the original text, where she appears in a single chapter of the manga and is never referenced again. The Toei animation sadly demotes her from this very important role to main character. The story follows these kids as they live their high school lives. The basic premise for each episode is that the gang does something, they come across a bad guy doing a bad thing, Yami Yugi awakens to set up some bullshit game, wins, and then damns the bad guy's soul to hell. These games include smashing a mirror into pieces and seeing who can put it back together the fastest, choosing which finger would be the best to kill your opponent, and the classic children's game of catching bottles of chloroform falling from the ceiling before crashing onto the floor, knocking you out in the process. If that sounds like something that would come out of a horror story, that's because it is. The original manga was envisioned as a horror series, which eventually turned into a battle manga that used games. The anime is actually much more toned down from the manga because instead of damning your soul, manga Yami would get into the habit of straight up murdering people, but only if they really deserved it. This show honestly reminds me of one of my other favorite animes that features teenagers being placed in challenging situations, to put it lightly. But just because Yami seems like a bad guy doesn't mean that he's the bad guy. He is, after all, the spirit of a god wearing the skin of a friendless boy, casting judgment on those he deems sinful. And since it's the 90s, there are sinners everywhere. In episode 1, we have Ushio, who much like Yami Yugi, is the spirit of a 17-year-old boy trapped in the body of a 40-year-old. He is the head of the Public Morale Committee and is trying to start up a small business. A business that consists of beating up people you know and then asking you for money. Very lucrative. Ushio approaches Yugi with this business opportunity by beating up Jonochi and Honda and asking for 20,000 yen for his services, which, thanks to this helpful translator's note, I'm told is about $3 billion. A reasonable price for hard labor. Little does he know, Yami Yugi is a communist and is against small business. He awakens to correct this sinful act of capitalism. It's time to enact government intervention Dimension. The game is simple. Ushio and Yami are tied together with rope and suspended on a tall building. Each of them pick cards and take that many steps up to the top, causing the other to descend further down. At the top sits the prize of $40 billion, a simple nest egg for a humble businessman. Yami, using the power of central government, crushes Ushio with high federal corporate taxes. Fearing the loss of his company, Ushio tries to evade with offshore tax havens to reach the top, only to find a box of playing cards instead of the cash money. Yami Yugi is a god with no need for material belongings. Ushio falls from grace into a pit of worms and is left mourning the loss of his small business. These are the kinds of stories you can expect from Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0, but I want to highlight two in particular. The first, a tournament arc with none other than Seto Kaiba, a heartless classmate. He kidnaps Yugi's grandpa as leverage to have the gang compete in Death Tea, a televised death game at Kaiba Land, an amusement park that Kaiba owns for some reason. What does Kaiba hope to accomplish? Doesn't this break a bunch of laws? How is this even possible? Screw the rules, he has green hair. Game 1, laser tag against an elite squad of mercenaries. But instead of harmless laser guns, they use harmful real guns. It's a bloodbath. Miho kills everyone. Game 2, a spelling bee. The opponent, a man named Blood, whose amazing ability is that they can crush anyone, because they are in fact a steamroller heading straight for the gang. Yugi manages to save the day with his innate skill of being familiar with the English language. Game 3, a simple game of dodgeball, where the balls fall from the sky, and instead of balls, they're blocks of solid metal. The gang uses the metal blocks to climb to the exit. Bahanda, unwilling to get naked in front of everyone, is crushed. An honorable death for a simp. Game 4, chess against Kaiba's younger brother, Mokuba. The deadly twist, the pieces are actually capsules. Capsules filled with tiny action figures that are drawn at random. It's chess with gotchas. Despicable. Yami awakens and is out for revenge. Mokuba pulls the equivalent of 5 queens. Yami, 5 pawns. Mokuba doesn't stand a chance. He is completely crushed by Yami and gassed by Kaiba for his failure. A very loving brother. The final stage, a duel with Seto Kaiba himself. The game, Duel Monsters. That's right, the famous TCG filled with all your favorite cards like Skullbat and Golgotha's Punishment. If you've never read the manga, you might have been wondering if this game was ever going to show up. Well, it's here now, in a form that seems more like a discount version of Magic the Gathering, mostly because it very much is. It's a fierce battle of wits between man and god. Kaiba puts up a good fight, but commits the ultimate sin. He isn't the main character. Kaiba is left broken, defeated, and completely catatonic after realizing that strange hair color isn't enough to make you a protagonist. Also, while all of this is happening, Junouchi and Miho fight in robot suits and win through sheer bullshit. I don't know, this arc is very strange. The last thing I'll talk about is probably one of my favorite arcs in this very short season. Now, I could talk about the episode with the Tamagotchis that eat people, the episode where a horde of zombies attack a man, the episode where Yugi stops a bomb threat at a theme park, or even the episode where Junouchi beats up a bunch of guys with a yo-yo. Don't get me wrong, all of these episodes were great, and I cherish them deeply. But I actually want to talk about the very last arc of this show, where the gang goes up against Ryo Bakura, a seemingly shy classmate, but one with a secret. Although he's a gentleman in the streets, he's a freak in the sheets. Bakura has the Millennium Ring, one of the Millennium items that, just like Yugi's puzzles, contains an ancient spirit. In this form, he's Yami Bakura, a 90s rock star. He lures the gang into his home for a game of Monster World. What is Monster World? It's Dungeons and Dragons, except the DM wants to kill you. So in reality, it's just Dungeons and Dragons. The goal of the campaign is to defeat the Dark Lord Zoku, which is controlled by the DM, Yami Bakura. The gang assembles their party, but Bakura isn't satisfied. He's really into role-playing, so much so that he literally turns the gang into their characters by transferring their souls into their pieces. And if you die in the game, you die in real life, which is some edgy shit. But there's something Yami Bakura didn't anticipate. Yugi has 2 souls in him, Little Yugi and the Pharaoh. Little Yugi's soul is transferred to his piece, but the Pharaoh stays behind. And now the stage is set for the ultimate battle, Yami Bakura versus the Pharaoh. And this time, it won't be easy. Bakura has everything Kaiba needed to win. Wacky hair color in a strange style to match. The first encounter, a small pack of monsters. The Pharaoh rolls for the gang as they continue to LARP. It seems like a tough situation, but not for the Pharaoh. He rolls hit after hit using a secret technique known as cheating, which, as you can imagine, is some straight bullshit. With the first encounter behind them, it's time to find the Dark Lord. They head to his castle and play hide and seek, but something's wrong. The Pharaoh notices something strange about this tower, so naturally everyone heads inside because they're morons. Would you have ever guessed? It's a trap. Spikes fall from the ceiling, but that's not all. Zoku appears out of thin air because why the hell not? The party is attacked from all sides, holding up the spiky ceiling and tanking Zoku's attacks. The only way out? Roll the secret number. The pharaoh rolls, and to his surprise, it's the wrong number. Don't worry though, it turns out Miho's character has a special ability of turning the wrong number into the right number. Wow, amazing. I guess Miho wasn't useless after all, but to be fair, this was all her fault. The gang goes on the attack, rolling hit after hit, and it does absolutely fucking nothing. But now, it's Zoku's turn, and Yamibakura isn't holding back. He has a special weapon up his sleeve, a pair of dice that carry the souls of his victims. You could even say that these dice are weighed down to one side by these souls. Mind dice, a pair of dice that will always roll the number you want. Yamibakura rolls, and can you believe it? It's a critical hit. Zoku unleashes a devastating blow and one-shots the entire party, killing them instantly. I'm only kidding, of course. Everyone has 1 HP left because fuck this game. Now, it's the gang's turn, but they'll need to roll against Yamibakura for every action. The pharaoh manages to beat Yamibakura's roll and uses Anzu's mage abilities to restore the party's health, much to Yamibakura's surprise. But how is that possible? The mind dice should be able to beat any roll. As it turns out, someone's been manipulating the game behind the scenes. Perfect Sweet Bakura, who appears in the form of Yamibakura's left hand. He managed to switch out the mind dice with a pair of regular dice unnoticed, but Yamibakura pushes forward. On the next turn, he plans to kill everyone. As Yamibakura goes for the roll, his left hand beats him to it, rolling the worst possible number for Zoku. Perfect Sweet Bakura fumbles the dice on purpose, and in anger, Yamibakura stabs his hand on a spike. Does this make any goddamn sense? No, but I don't really care. Also, Perfect Sweet Bakura is in the game now too, because I'm not too sure what the fuck is happening anymore. But now, it's time for the final strike. Zoku changes into his final form, and it's anyone's game. Whoever has the better roll is the winner. The pharaoh and Yamibakura toss, but in the end, it doesn't matter who rolls better, because Yamibakura's dice explode, and the pharaoh claims victory. What a champ. Everyone's soul is put back, and Yamibakura is driven out. And that's the end of the show. It was filled with twists, turns, and a lot of bullshit. I would highly recommend. It's a children's show that features kids getting chloroformed on 3 separate occasions, which is absolutely bizarre. Check it out if you can get your hands on a copy, because let's be honest, most of us have nothing better to do these days. Out of a scale from 1 to 10, I give Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0 a very respectable. I'm not sure who this was made for.